So I got another request to do another rebuttal on Eli Manning and why he is a Hall of Famer. Obviously, this rebuttal is going to be directed towards Strong Opinion Sports. I'm not looking for clout. I just think his opinion was a little bit misguided. Quite frankly, his opinion, even though he probably didn't mean to, is a little bit of hypocritical. But I'll let you guys hear what he has to say and let you guys form your own opinion. A lot of people may say I'm biased because I'm a Giants fan, but at the end of the day, I don't care if this was Eli Manning or anybody else with a similar resume to Eli. I would say these people need to be put in the Hall of Fame, and maybe not for the opinions you may think. And I'll also show a little clip of Adam Schefter speaking on Eli Manning being a Hall of Famer, because he's a former Hall of Fame voter, and I think he has the best insight into this process and the biggest criteria on what they use to induct somebody into Hall of Fame. And it's not always what you think it is. It's actually similar to a point I made in my previous rebuttal. So with no further ado, let's get into it.
3 categories, like passing yards, passing touchdowns, and completions. Like, he is statistically, like, I don't know, you can have that argument if you want, but you're wasting your time. You shouldn't have to convince somebody that another person is a Hall of Famer. If you have to try to convince somebody or sell it, it's wrong. It should be obvious if someone is a Hall of Famer. You shouldn't have to force it. That shouldn't be a long conversation. I'm going to make a silly analogy, but it's true. When I go buy jeans, if I'm trying on jeans and I'm not sure, I don't buy them because it's not clear. It's not obvious. It's the same way with Hall of Fame. Indecision is no. If you're here's the thing. If you're dating somebody and you're not sure if you like them, end it. Walk away, go find someone you know you really like. I'm going to list some names: Jerry Rice, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Ray Lewis, and Larry Fitzgerald. When you hear those names, you think Hall of Fame. Michael Irving, Hall of Fame. There's no debate whether or not those names are Hall of Famers. It's just obvious. It's very clear. When I said Tom Brady, didn't go, nobody hesitated. Jerry Rice, there's no hesitation. Clear, obvious. Ray Lewis, clear, obvious Hall of Famer. There's no hesitation. If you ask someone if they're a Hall of Famer and they pause and go, it's a no. It's over.
So Strong Opinion's biggest problem with Eli being a Hall of Famer is it's not obvious. Yet he's judging it by the wrong criteria. And I'll play a snippet for a man that had Hall of Fame voting rights in Adam Schefter. I don't even need to make the argument, because being the best of the best, yes, it makes your Hall of Fame resume obvious, but it's not always the obvious people that get in. So let's go listen to what Adam Schefter had to say.
As a former voter, as someone who was in that room for about 5 different years, I remember one expression: can you write the history of the game without this particular individual? And Eli Manning had the play against the New England Patriots where he eluded the rush and threw to David Tyree. That was maybe the greatest play in Super Bowl history. He had the one throw, the rope along the sideline to Marion Manningham against the greatest defensive coach, and a throw he had to have and a play he had to make that won that game. Yep. He beat Brett Favre in Lambeau Field in the postseason. He beat Aaron Rodgers in the postseason. This guy has done it at various levels. And beyond that, much like Derek Jeter, as long as he played in New York, in this area, how many times do you remember any whiff of controversy surrounding Eli Manning?
So wow, Strong Opinion. Look, the biggest criteria is not being the best of the best. Because how many people do you need to go through and say it's not obvious? Joe Namath is not obvious to get in. George Blanda is not obvious to get in. Kurt Warner, Bob Dylan, DB great for the Packers that holds the Packers record for most interceptions that has stood to this day. He died at 89 years old. He has a great story. Kurt Warner's a great story. Joe Namath's a great story. George Blanda is a great story. You cannot tell the history of the NFL without these, but none of these guys I mentioned, statistic-wise or ability-wise, were good enough to be in the Hall of Fame, yet they sit there. Why is that? Dan Fouts wasn't good enough to get in the Hall of Fame, but he's there. Why? Your own argument is flipped on its head when you start looking at what the criteria is actually getting the Hall of Fame. People think this criteria is being the best of the best, or position defining, or dominating a large portion of your career. And yes, those help you get in the Hall of Fame. But at the end of the day, the biggest criteria to get into the Hall of Fame is, can we tell the story of the NFL? This is what the Hall of Fame is. The Hall of Fame is a collection of stories without this person. And the reality is, when it comes to Eli, you can't. Think about if you took Eli's greatest moments and tried to remove them from history. If you could tell the same story, or the story be as good. The reality is, it wouldn't. It doesn't matter if you think somebody's obvious to get in, because that's not the criteria they use. Or 80% of the people in the Hall of Fame wouldn't be there in the first place. You see what I'm saying? The Hall of Fame is a Hall of Fame because it's made of great stories and tells the history of the NFL. And that's the oversight a lot of these so-called haters, or people that think that you need to be the best of the best to get into the Hall of Fame. This is what they think, but that's not the criteria that's used. Eli Manning will undoubtedly be a Hall of Famer, if you like it or not. And I don't even think it's a question. And what pisses me off is the fact that we have to ask this question. Either way, it's been one giant rebuttal. Please like and subscribe. And go Big Blue.